So in all of this, so we've covered the stats. We're convincing sellers to go on the market. It's a great time to sell. So Kim, why in all of the online searches and all of the trends toward this job, we're just about putting a buyer and a seller together, how working with an experienced realtor helps solve problems and can anticipate what problems might have. So at the end of the day, our job is so much more, and in fact, a very small part of it, in my mind, is finding the house or listing the house. It's the problem solving. It's the anticipating the problems. What have you come across recently with buyers or sellers in how, like, okay, here we go. I'm putting on my experience hat. We're going to figure this out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. So there's so many things that can come up. Of course, an experienced agent, we negotiate really hard for them, right? So putting a buyer and seller together, and we work really hard to try to make that match work, however that is. From the minute we write that offer and trying to work with the agent on the other side, or likewise if we're a seller, just trying to find that best buyer for the seller. The person that's going to go to the closing table, go through all those nuances. We interview the lender. We make sure that the lender is solid, that their documents are actually turned in. Maybe they're pre-underwritten, which is a bonus, that they're with a solid lender. And so from that step all the way through to the end, there are a lot of steps. I think I had a chart that was like 287 steps to get you from begin to end when you get to the contract part. So I know sometimes people say, oh my gosh, it's so easy. There's just not much that can go on. And then that deal that I'm working with that person has all kinds of explosions, not literal, but just explosion things. And in the end, they're like, I had no idea how valuable a really experienced realtor is to the entire process.
Yeah, what was some, you were telling me earlier, what was some that came up? And I think they were pretty much at the end of the transaction, right?
Yeah, so one thing, we were talking about is in the contract, a buyer is entitled to do a walkthrough of a property. And so back, years and years ago, people kind of just took that for granted and it was a maybe, kind of thing. And now, it's a must-do type of thing because, even though sellers are instructed, don't take down your drapes, don't take the fridge, don't do the washer and dryer if they're part of the contract. It's important for the buyer to come through at the end to make sure that the things that are written in remain. And that there isn't some damage, to carpeting or different things.
Yeah, a lot can happen when the seller moves out, right? You're at the closing day, so the day before closing, they've moved out, and now what does the house look like when it's empty of furniture?
Yeah, I had one recently. They were going to take the blinds and the drapes and the rods.
Oh my gosh.
And so, these were beautiful, and they really were large windows, and so they definitely made the house extra special.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, we did that walkthrough a couple days before closing, and we're able to, capture that was
that is so smart, because what would have happened is if you hadn't done the walkthrough, there would be holes in the wall, the drapes would have been gone, and you would have some very unhappy buyers because in the contract, anything attached, those things are all very specifically laid out, right?
Yes, it's very specific. So that's it. Really, really important to just go over your contract, have your realtor discuss it with you. And again, a lot of these things get caught up in the moment as people are moving. They're like, oh my gosh, it's mine, or, it's my grandma's, drapes or whatever. Mm-hmm. But those are just things, that we look for in that.
Well, that was so great that
in that walkthrough.
That the buyers had the experience, that you have that experience and could go back to the listing agent to say, these are the things, because then you have to have a discussion, and she needs to talk, or he needs to talk to the sellers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.